salvation is wonderful. I shout with the millions on high. He hides my soul in the cleft of the rock, the shadows of dry, thirsty land. He hides my life in the depths of his love, and covers me there with his hand, and covers me there with his hand.
Okay. Appreciate the job that Brother Wallace did with the second half of Genesis. Now this morning we're going to start a new quarter, and as you can tell from the screen, we're going to be studying the book of Exodus this quarter on Sunday mornings. So if you will, if you haven't already done so, turn your Bibles to Exodus chapter 1. Exodus chapter 1. Okay, let me see if I can start rolling through my slides. Okay, yeah. Okay, now, if you notice from this weekly schedule, we got to cover 40 chapters in 13 weeks. So that's a pretty aggressive schedule, and we can debate whether that's too aggressive or not at another time. But that's our plan right now, is to cover 40 chapters in one quarter. So we're going to be moving pretty quickly because today we're covering 4 chapters. So the best advice I can give you is just like when you were in school, read ahead of time. So you already know that next Sunday we're going to cover chapters 5 through 7. So if you will, for next Sunday, just read 5 through 7, and then when you get here, you're ready to go. And we can move quickly through the chapters. Okay, all right, so I'm not going to waste much time since we're trying to move quick, so I'm going to go right to my next slide. Okay. Yes, I can. In fact, I can send you that. If you give me your email address, I can send it to you in the email. Or I can make copies and give it to you as well. Just let me know. I can get that scheduled to you, so you'll have it. That's good. Good question, Brother Thompson. Okay, so this is my introduction slide for the book of Exodus, and I won't read all that. But of course, you know, it's part of the law, part of what's called the Pentateuch, second book of Moses. You know, Exodus means depart, exit. So it describes how God took his people out of Egypt, helped form them into a nation with hope for the future. And it says some other things that I won't read all of that, but that's kind of my introduction slide. And of course, I got some other things here. 10 Commandments, of course, is in Exodus, and all the other laws. And we just see how God's loving and just character comes out in the story of the book of Exodus. And we get a greater understanding of the depth of his holiness, because we're serving a holy God. And of course, next quarter, Brother Thompson is going to cover the book of Leviticus, and that's really when you get into the real depth of God's holiness, right? But Exodus brings some stuff out about his holiness as well. Any questions about that introductory slide? Okay, all right, so next is that's my outline for the book of Exodus, and you can come up with several different types of outlines. This is one I came up with, or actually I found in a source, and I think it's pretty accurate. And of course, today we're covering chapters 1 through 4, so we'll be covering under the first section, the Israelites set free from Egypt. We'll be covering chapter 1, how they were slaves in Egypt, and then chapters 2 through 4, Moses' birth and early life, that's in those chapters. And you can see the rest of the outline there as well. Any questions about that? Okay, y'all doing good. We're moving quick. Y'all have any questions? Okay. Now, I know you're going to have some questions about this slide, though. So, I probably made that too small. I apologize for those in the back. You probably can't see that. I should have made that bigger. That's my fault. But as I study, I like to know the time frame of when I'm studying. In other words, what year is it? That's what I kind of like to know. So I came up with this, or found this timeline for the book of Exodus. And then as I was looking at it, I noticed that it doesn't have the year that Joseph died on that timeline, which is 1805 is when Joseph dies. And you might say, well, why is that a big deal? Where Joseph dies in 1805, which that's the end of Genesis, right? Joseph dies at the end of Genesis. And then if you see here on this slide, Moses is born in 1527. And these dates are approximate. They may be off by a few years. So Joseph dies 1805. Moses is born, I should say, in 1507. So if you do the math there, was it 278? So 278 years between Joseph's death and Moses' birth. So that kind of shows you that we're flying by in the years, right? Because 278, almost 300 years passed by between those three chapters, Genesis 50, and then Exodus 2 is where Moses is born. So I'm just showing you that the years are flying by. So that's kind of the reason why I like to know what's the time frame that we're talking about when I'm studying. So that kind of helps out with that. Any questions about that timeline? I'll make it bigger next time. It's my mistake there. Okay, all right, so one more slide and then we'll jump into the chapter 1. Okay, yeah, that's also small, I apologize. But that kind of talks about shows the different books of the Pentateuch or the law and the theme or the thematic focus of each one of the books. And of course it has Exodus broken up into two sections. 1 through 11 is the beginnings, and then 12 through 50 is promise, particularly the promise tied to Abraham in Genesis 12. And then of course for Exodus the theme is redemption, right? Kind of like, Christ redeemed us at the cross. Moses led Israelites out of Egypt, so he redeemed us from Egypt through all those signs and miracles that God did with Moses. So, in fact, Moses is kind of considered, if you look at some scholars, they kind of consider him as a type of Christ, because just like Christ redeemed us, Moses redeemed his people. So he's kind of considered a type of Christ. Okay, so I figured I'd show you that slide there. Okay, now so any questions about what I've shown you so far before we jump into chapter 1? Does it make sense so far? Orlando, you good? Oh, okay, Orlando's good, then we're good. Okay, all right, so we're going to jump into chapter 1. And in fact, Trey, probably what I'm going to do is, so we can kind of move quickly, I think we'll go ahead and just play chapters 1 and 2. Let's see if we can just get chapters 1 and 2 out the way. That might help us get kind of going, right? So let's play chapters 1 and 2, Trey, and then we'll step through those.
The second book of Moses, called Exodus. Chapter 1. Now these are the names of the children of Israel who came to Egypt. Each man and his household came with Jacob. Reuben, Simeon, Levi, and Judah. Issachar, Zebulun, and Benjamin. Dan, Naphtali, Gad, and Asher. All those who were descendants of Jacob were 70 persons, for Joseph was in Egypt already. And Joseph died, all his brothers, and all that generation. But the children of Israel were fruitful and increased abundantly, multiplied and grew exceedingly mighty, and the land was filled with them. Now there arose a new king over Egypt, who did not know Joseph. And he said to his people, "Look, the people of the children of Israel are more and mightier than we. Come, let us deal shrewdly with them, lest they multiply and it happen, in the event of war, that they also join our enemies and fight against us, and so go up out of the land. Therefore they set taskmasters over them, to afflict them with their burdens. And they built for Pharaoh supply cities, Pithom and Raamses. But the more they afflicted them, the more they multiplied and grew. And they were in dread of the children of Israel. So the Egyptians made the children of Israel serve with rigor, and they made their lives bitter with hard bondage, in mortar, in brick, and in all manner of service in the field. All their service in which they made them serve was with rigor. Then the king of Egypt spoke to the Hebrew midwives, of whom the name of one was Shiphrah, and the name of the other Pua. And he said, "When you do the duties of a midwife for the Hebrew women, and see them on the birth stools, if it is a son, then you shall kill him. But if it is a daughter, then she shall live." But the midwives feared God, and did not do as the king of Egypt commanded them, but saved the male children alive. So the king of Egypt called for the midwives, and said to them, "Why have you done this thing, and saved the male children alive?" And the midwives said to Pharaoh, "Because the Hebrew women are not like the Egyptian women, for they are lively, and give birth before the midwives come to them." Therefore God dealt well with the midwives, and the people multiplied and grew very mighty. And so it was, because the midwives feared God, that he provided households for them. So Pharaoh commanded all his people, saying, "Every son who is born you shall cast into the river, and every daughter you shall save alive."
So we'll go on into chapter 2.
Chapter 2. And a man of the house of Levi went and took as wife a daughter of Levi. So the woman conceived and bore a son. And when she saw that he was a beautiful child, she hid him 3 months. But when she could no longer hide him, she took an ark of bulrushes for him, daubed it with asphalt and pitch, put the child in it, and laid it in the reeds by the river's bank. And his sister stood afar off, to know what would be done to him. Then the daughter of Pharaoh came down to bathe at the river, and her maidens walked along the riverside. And when she saw the ark among the reeds, she sent her maid to get it. And when she opened it, she saw the child, and behold, the baby wept. So she had compassion on him, and said, "This is one of the Hebrews' children." Then his sister said to Pharaoh's daughter, "Shall I go and call a nurse for you from the Hebrew women, that she may nurse the child for you?" And Pharaoh's daughter said to her, "Go." So the maiden went and called the child's mother. Then Pharaoh's daughter said to her, "Take this child away and nurse him for me, and I will give you your wages." So the woman took the child and nursed him. And the child grew, and she brought him to Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. So she called his name Moses, saying, "Because I drew him out of the water." Now it came to pass in those days, when Moses was grown, that he went out to his brethren, and looked at their burdens. And he saw an Egyptian beating a Hebrew, one of his brethren. So he looked this way and that way, and when he saw no one, he killed the Egyptian and hid him in the sand. And when he went out the second day, behold, 2 Hebrew men were fighting. And he said to the one who did the wrong, "Why are you striking your companion?" Then he said, "Who made you a prince and a judge over us? Do you intend to kill me as you killed the Egyptian?" So Moses feared and said, "Surely this thing is known." When Pharaoh heard of this matter, he sought to kill Moses. But Moses fled from the face of Pharaoh and dwelt in the land of Midian, and he sat down by a well. Now the priest of Midian had 7 daughters, and they came and drew water, and they filled the troughs to water their father's flock. Then the shepherds came and drove them away. But Moses stood up and helped them, and watered their flock. When they came to Reuel, their father, he said, "How is it that you have come so soon today?" And they said, "An Egyptian delivered us from the hand of the shepherds, and he also drew enough water for us and watered the flock." So he said to his daughters, "And where is he? Why is it that you have left the man? Call him, that he may eat bread." Then Moses was content to live with the man, and he gave Zipporah his daughter to Moses, and she bore him a son. He called his name Gershom, for he said, "I have been a stranger in a foreign land." Now it happened in the process of time that the king of Egypt died. Then the children of Israel groaned because of the bondage, and they cried out. And their cry came up to God because of the bondage. So God heard their groaning, and God remembered his covenant with Abraham, with Isaac, and with Jacob. And God looked upon the children of Israel, and God acknowledged them.
Okay, stop right there, Trey. Okay, that's chapters 1 and 2. So let's step through those quickly. Let's see. Okay, yeah. Okay, all right, yeah. So that's my little mini outline for chapter 1. First part of that outline, God's people are multiplying, verses 1 through 7 of chapter 1. Brother Thompson, let me know when it's 10 o'clock. Okay, so verses 1 through 7, chapter 1, a total of 70 of Jacob's descendants go to Egypt. We know that from the last part of Genesis 50. Of course, Joseph and his family are already there in Egypt, right? And then, of course, Joseph dies, but the people multiplied and filled the land, which is interesting. The people multiplied, which is probably tied to that covenant that God made with Abraham, right? What did God tell Abraham? He's going to make him a great nation, right? So this is all part of that. God's got the people multiplying there in the land of Egypt. And then when you go to the next section, God's people are oppressed by forced labor and extermination. A new king, Pharaoh, comes to power who doesn't know what? He doesn't know Joseph. He doesn't know anything about all the great things that Joseph did. And this new king was concerned that these Israelites are multiplying. So he has to do something about that. He sees it as a problem that the Israelites are multiplying. So he's got to do something about that, because if they keep multiplying, they're going to get so strong, they're going to overtake him, right? So he has to deal shrewdly with them and come up with a plan to limit their power and their strength. So he comes up with 3 ways to try to limit their power and their strength, right? What's the first way? Well, make them slaves. Verse 11, so the Egyptians oppressed the Israelites by making them into forced laborers or slaves. They were forced to build the store cities of Pithom and Ramses. So did that work? Did that limit their power? Did that stop them? No, why not? God's hands at work, Sister Wilbur. Verse number 12, but the more the Egyptians oppressed the Israelites, what happened? The more they multiplied and became even more of a concern to the Egyptians. Man, God's in this thing, right? Verses 13 and 14, so the Egyptians oppressed the Israelites even more. They worked them even harder, forcing them to make bricks and do all kinds of field work. So then Pharaoh said, okay, first plan didn't work. I got to come up with something else. Have the midwives kill the babies that they're born, right? So verses 15 and 16, Pharaoh's ordered the Hebrew midwives, Shipra and Pur, to kill the boys when they're born, but let the girls live. Did that work? Why didn't that work, Brother Moore? That didn't work. Verse 17, the Hebrew midwives did what? They feared God, didn't they? They feared God and did not kill the boys. The Bible says that when they were asked about it, they said, well, the Hebrew women give birth before they get there. Was that true? It's probably lying there somewhere. It's probably lying there somewhere. But it was, I ain't gonna say a good lie, but it kind of worked out, right? It's never good to lie. Don't leave here saying, bro, Mhoon said it was okay to lie. I didn't say that. But as a result of what they did, God was good to the midwives and gave them families, the Bible says, right? So then that plan didn't work either. So what does Pharaoh do? Man, none of my plans are working. So we got to do something else. Throw the boy babies into the Nile River, but let the girls live. Did that work? Y'all shaking your head? No, that didn't work either. Verse 22, Pharaoh commanded this, and then, of course, we're getting ready to go to chapter 2. And in chapter 2, they put a boy in that river that they shouldn't have put in that river. Got put in the rivers and got found. That was Moses. Okay, so I guess my question would be, as I leave chapter 1, are Pharaoh's solutions working? And you guys already tell me no. Is that true? No, because God's in the plan. Is that right? Okay, all right. So any questions about chapter 1? Chapter 1 kind of cut and dry, ain't it? Cut and dry. Okay, all right. So let's jump to chapter 2. Okay, there's my outline for chapter 2. The first part, the birth of Moses, a Levite man named Amram. That's not in the text, but that's, we know that from a future text. His name is Amram, Moses' daddy. Marries a Levite woman, and what's her name? Jochebed, right. And she hid her son that they had for 3 months because of Pharaoh's edict to kill the boy babies. But then after 3 months, she couldn't hide it no longer. So she does what? She puts him in a basket and puts him in the Nile River while his sister is standing there by the shore watching. What's his sister's name? Miriam. Sister's name Miriam. Okay, so then Pharaoh's daughter sees the basket in the weeds, and she has one of her servants go in there and get the basket, and they open it up, and they saw the baby, and they feel sorry for the baby. Why is that? The baby's crying. Okay, all right, then when we get close to him and he sees crying, then they see, this is one of the Hebrew babies, right? So they kind of felt sorry for him. And then, of course, Miriam says, okay, well, do you want somebody, a Hebrew woman, to raise that child for you? And she said, yeah, why don't you do that? Why don't you get a Hebrew woman to raise this child for us? Then what she do? She go get some mama, doesn't she? So the mama ends up raising the baby, her own son, and got paid for it. Okay? Is God involved in this? I think God's involved in this. Of course he is. All right? So let's keep going. Let's see, I probably should point out in verse number, let me point this out because I know I'm flying through here, but this is probably worth pointing out. Verse 10 of chapter 2, and the child grew, and she brought him unto Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. So, the mother, Jochebed, she didn't keep him forever, did she? She had to bring him back. So, Jochebed, I think is where the name is spelled. Okay, she had to bring him back. I think my reference says when he was about 3 or 4 years old, she brought him back to Pharaoh's daughter. So, from the time he was 3 or 4 years old till the time he turned roughly 40 years old, Moses was raised what? An Egyptian. He was raised an Egyptian, right? So Brother Red mentioned this at Raleigh Springs the other week because he started teaching Exodus over there. He talked about how Moses didn't really have a slave mentality, right? Because he wasn't raised a slave. He was raised in Egypt, right? So he didn't have the same kind of mentality as those had who were actually raised as slaves, right? But was he concerned about them? Of course he was. Was he raised a slave? No, he was not. Okay, so that's just kind of food for thought. Oh, yes, ma'am. Well, I think he probably knew Sister Will. I'm sure they told Pharaoh, okay, we found this boy in the water. I'm sure he knew. I don't think she hid it from him. He knew. Because we knew at some point, him and Pharaoh had to interact, right? So he knew about it. Okay, so let's jump to the next section. Moses flees to Midian. Years later, it's probably around this time, after Moses was grown up, then he was watching out for one of his own people being oppressed by an Egyptian. So he sees nobody around, so what does he do? He kills the Egyptian and buries him in the sand. And then he thought, well, all is well. I killed an Egyptian, so what? I killed him and I buried him over there. No big deal. But then the next day, he sees two of his own Hebrew brothers fighting, and he asks the one in the wrong, why are you beating up the guy over here? Man, we all family. Why are you beating him up? And then the one who, I guess, was winning said, well, who made you judge over us? You gonna kill me like you killed that Egyptian yesterday? And then Moses said, okay, this thing must have been found out about that I did yesterday when I killed that Egyptian. I get out of here, because if I don't, Pharaoh gonna kill me for killing one of his folks. So what does he do? He flees and goes to Midian. Fearing that Pharaoh would kill him, verse number 15, he flees to Midian, and he sits down by a well. Now, it's a lot to unpack there. I'm going to only unpack this part right here. Who are the Midianites? Moses flees to Midian, so who are those folks where he flees to? Okay, Jana said that, and my hearing's going bad, Jana, so I was probably got to get a battery or something. Abraham's descendants. It's Abraham's folks. Okay, Abraham's descendants. Abraham had a concubine or a wife named what? Okay, Sister Red's going to tell me Keturah, because we got a Keturah here, though. But her name not spelled the same as it. She going to get me, too. She's not here this morning. Keturah, right. So Abraham had a son by Keturah, and his name was Midian. So the Midianites descended from that fellow. Okay, that's just a little food for thought. Okay, and then, of course, let me keep going down to verse 16 of that section. Then Moses goes to Midian. Then the priest of Midian had 7 daughters who came to the well and drew water for their father's flocks. But when they normally did that, the shepherds would drive them away. So one day, Moses shows up. Okay, all right. Then those shepherds come to run away Midian's daughters. Then Moses said, "No, you're not gonna run these women away. Y'all get away." So Moses runs them away, and then kind of rescues the daughters. And then the daughters returned to their father Reuel and told him about it. And he said, "Why don't y'all just invite the fella to dinner?" So they invite the fella to dinner. Moses stayed with him, and then next thing you know, stuff happened pretty quickly. Next thing you know, Reuel gives his daughter Zipporah to Moses as a wife, and she bears him a son. And what is his son's name? Gershom. I wonder why they named him Gershom. Y'all got any kids named Gershom? Okay, y'all. Okay, all right. Because Gershom stands for something. Alien. Okay, Moses said, I was an alien or I was a foreigner in Midian when I had this son, so that's why he named him Gershom. Okay, and then last part, I saw your hand up, Sister. Okay, I had to put my brain back on for a minute, Near. I forgot your name, but yes, that's a good point. Even though he was raised an Egyptian, his mom got to play a part in his raising the first few years of his life. So that's very good. They got to kind of bond a little bit before he went to be raised in Egypt. So that's a very good point. Appreciate that, Near. And then here's a very important section though. God remembers His covenant. So after a long time period, verse 23, Pharaoh dies, but the Israelites are steadily being severely oppressed. And they do what? What do you do when you're severely oppressed? Y'all probably haven't been severely oppressed before, but what do you do when you're struggling? Cry to God, don't you? That's what I do. So they cried to God, and then what happened? God heard their cries and remembered His covenant between Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So if you were to ask me, Brother Mhoon, what's the turning point in this lesson? I said right there in the last part, because God heard their cries and He's getting ready to do something. And when God get ready to do something, He get ready to do something. Okay? So this is not even in my lesson, but cry out to Him when you're struggling, which you probably already do, but keep doing it because at some point He's going to do something about it. I don't know when, but at some point He's going to do something about it because that's the kind of God we serve. Okay, so as I end up chapter 2, what time is it? Oh, man. Okay, I got here in my notes, what is God doing? He's causing them to multiply, of course, makes the Egyptians fearful. But then in chapter 2, the focus becomes on Moses, and he's getting this man ready to go rescue his people. That's what's happening. He's getting this man Moses ready. Moses is born. He's getting him ready to rescue his people. Any questions about chapters 1 and 2 before we jump to chapter 3 and before our time runs out? Let me show you this map. The other thing, y'all know I like maps too, because I like knowing the time frame that I'm dealing with, and I like to know kind of where the folks are, okay? Because I tend to get lost a lot of times, even when I'm traveling. But you can't really get lost. If you got one of these dumb phones that Brother Michael said, you really can't get lost with one of these. Okay, now in the early days you could get lost. Okay, when I use these, actually before they had the iPhone, but times they had the GPSs. Now you used to have those Garmin GPS. Sometimes they put the bogus maps on the GPS. Now one time I went to Georgia, man, I got so lost I was driving trying to follow the map. I was out finding some weeds somewhere. I said, man, this thing got me. And I had to call the people and ask them where I'm supposed to turn now. The maps were bad, but they pretty good now on the iPhones. But anyway, I like knowing where people are when I'm studying. Of course, Egypt's up here. Of course, Goshen, that's where God's people are. And then, of course, Moses fled down here. There's Midian right there. You see that? That's where he flees down to. And then we're going to spend some time here pretty soon at Mount Sinai. That's the same as Mount Horeb. We're going to look at that in a second. But I think it's interesting. Moses went from Sinai back to Egypt. That's roughly 200 miles. That's like from here to Nashville. So you all ever walk from here to Nashville? It probably takes a pretty good walk. I walked a couple of miles yesterday, but that's not 200. But anyway, yeah, they probably some pretty healthy folks back then. I don't think he had a horse or nothing, so they're probably pretty healthy folks. Okay, all right. So any questions about any other thing in the first 2 chapters before I jump to chapter 3? Okay, y'all good? So Trey, go ahead and play chapter 3. And I don't know if we're going to get to chapter 4, but if we don't, I'm telling you in advance, read chapter 4 when you get home. I'm going to talk about it pretty quick here, but read when you get home because good stuff is in there. Trey, play chapter 3 and we'll step through it.
Chapter 3. Now Moses was tending the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law, the priest of Midian. And he led the flock to the back of the desert and came to Horeb, the mountain of God. And the angel of the Lord appeared to him in a flame of fire from the midst of a bush. So he looked, and behold, the bush was burning with fire, but the bush was not consumed. Then Moses said, I will now turn aside and see this great sight, why the bush does not burn. So when the Lord saw that he turned aside to look, God called to him from the midst of the bush and said, Moses, Moses. And he said, Here I am. Then he said, Do not draw near this place. Take your sandals off your feet, for the place where you stand is holy ground. Moreover, he said, I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. And Moses hid his face, for he was afraid to look upon God. And the Lord said, I have surely seen the oppression of my people who are in Egypt, and have heard their cry because of their taskmasters, for I know their sorrows. So I have come down to deliver them out of the hand of the Egyptians, and to bring them up from that land to a good and large land, to a land flowing with milk and honey, to the place of the Canaanites and the Hittites, and the Amorites and the Perizzites, and the Hivites and the Jebusites. Now therefore, behold, the cry of the children of Israel has come to me, and I have also seen the oppression with which the Egyptians oppress them. Come now, therefore, and I will send you to Pharaoh, that you may bring my people, the children of Israel, out of Egypt. But Moses said to God, Who am I, that I should go to Pharaoh, and that I should bring the children of Israel out of Egypt? So he said, I will certainly be with you, and this shall be a sign to you that I have sent you. When you have brought the people out of Egypt, you shall serve God on this mountain. Then Moses said to God, Indeed, when I come to the children of Israel and say to them, The God of your fathers has sent me to you, and they say to me, What is his name? What shall I say to them? And God said to Moses, I am who I am. And he said, Thus you shall say to the children of Israel, I am has sent me to you. Moreover, God said to Moses, Thus you shall say to the children of Israel, The Lord God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob, has sent me to you. This is my name forever, and this is my memorial to all generations. Go and gather the elders of Israel together, and say to them, The Lord God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, of Isaac, and of Jacob, appeared to me, saying, I have surely visited you, and seen what is done to you in Egypt. And I have said, I will bring you up out of the affliction of Egypt, to the land of the Canaanites, and the Hittites, and the Amorites, and the Perizzites, and the Hivites, and the Jebusites, to a land flowing with milk and honey. Then they will heed your voice, and you shall come, you and the elders of Israel, to the king of Egypt. And you shall say to him, The Lord God of the Hebrews has met with us. And now, please, let us go 3 days' journey into the wilderness, that we may sacrifice to the Lord our God. But I am sure that the king of Egypt will not let you go, no, not even by a mighty hand. So I will stretch out my hand and strike Egypt with all my wonders, which I will do in its midst. And after that, he will let you go. And I will give this people favor in the sight of the Egyptians. And it shall be, when you go, that you shall not go empty-handed. But every woman shall ask of her neighbor, namely, of her who dwells near her house, articles of silver, articles of gold, and clothing. And you shall put them on your sons and on your daughters. So you shall plunder the Egyptians.
Okay, all right, that's chapter 3. Let's see. Yeah, Trey, go back. Yeah. see. Okay, yeah. So there's my outline for chapter 3, just a little basic outline. God calls Moses, verses 1 through 22. So I just got it separated into 4 sections that I call the first section today. So on a certain day, Moses is doing what? He's out shepherding his father-in-law's sheep that he led to Horeb. He's led to Horeb, or the Mount of God that I showed you earlier on that map. And then, okay, thank you, Brother Thompson. Okay, all right, yeah, we in trouble. But anyway, verses 2 through 6, then he gets to the bush. Moses, he's out at Horeb, and then he sees a bush, and it's okay, it's just a bush over here. So what's the big deal about a bush? Well, the bush is burning, and the bush won't burn up. Okay, that's pretty interesting, isn't it? A bush is burning but won't burn up. Every time I read this story, I think about the story. I think I told the story before, but when I was a kid, years ago, at my aunt's house, and then, of course, my mom and my aunt, they just remind me of you, Sister Thompson. They's Mississippi ladies from Kent, Mississippi. So they're just down home country ladies. But they raised us, as kids. When it stormed, like it stormed yesterday, didn't it? It was blew some trees down in my neighborhood. But anyway, when it stormed, my parents would always say, and my aunt, y'all get somewhere and sit down. Right? You get somewhere and sit down and be quiet. So it was storming at my aunt's house, and then we was out in the front room, probably about 10 of us in the front room, and cut everything off. We just in the front room talking. And then there was a big clap of thunder, and then we heard something in the back room. I said, what's that we hear in the back room? The lightning cut the TV on. The TV was turned off, but the lightning cut the TV on. I promise you, I've never seen anything like that. So we went back there. They said, we knew this TV was on, but it's on now. It was just playing, it's up there playing. But then you know what? When they turned it off, it never came back on again. It's a true story. But anyway, a voice called out to Moses from the bush. Moses. The voice told Moses, hey, okay, I called you, but don't come no closer. This is holy ground, you better come on. Take your shoes off. And then God said, I am the God of your father Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And then Moses hid his face because he was afraid, the Bible says, to look at God. And then, of course, we go to the need. I'm not calling you for nothing. I need you for something. What do you need me for, God? I said, I'm playing Moses. I'm getting ready to tell you. Verse 7. I've seen the misery of my people, and I've heard their cries. They need to be delivered. So I've come to use you to rescue them from the oppression of the Egyptians and take them to a land flowing with milk and honey, to the territory of the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Amorites, Perizzites, Hivites, and Jebusites. Okay? So then Moses said, man, he's calling me, huh? Okay, well, you calling me, so who am I that I can do this? He got these excuses, right? He says, who am I? As if to say, I don't have all the answers. And then what does God say? You might not have all the answers, but I'm going to be with you. Verse number 11 and 12. So you don't have all the answers, but you're going to have me. Then he has his second excuse. He says, well, you going to send me to talk to these people, who should I tell them sent me? You read the story? So Jan said, I am. Tell them that I am sent you. Because I am the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. This is my name forever. So you might not have the respect, but you're going to have my power. You tell them that I am sent you. Now, man, my time is out, Brother Thompson. I already told my time is out. So I don't have time to go through all the rest of that. Y'all read the rest of chapter 3 and chapter 4 when you get home. But basically, God's telling them, I'm the creator in the absolute sense. Everything else bows down to me. You tell them that I said I sent you, and you're going to be fine because I'm going to be with you. And I'm going to put the words in your mouth. That's the next chapter. But y'all read the rest of that when you get home because my time is out. And then I got to make some points this morning because you can't come to the Bible class and not get any points. But here's my outline for chapter number 4. Moses still, he's reluctant to go. So then God does these signs, right? The first sign, he told him, throw your staff on the ground, made it a snake. And then second sign, put your hand in your coat, bring it back out. It's leprous. Put it back in, bring it back out. It's whole again. So God showed him, hey, I got the power to help you with this guy, Pharaoh, right? And then the next sign was what? He told him to go down to the river, put your staff in there. We're going to turn it to blood, okay? After those 3 signs, if you still not convinced, I'm going to crack you side your head. You going down there. No, he didn't say that. Y'all, he didn't say crack side your head. But he basically told him, you going down there and then take your brother Aaron with you. He'll be your spokesperson. He can talk well, okay? You ain't getting out of this, in other words. You going and get my people out of Egypt. That's the bottom line. That's my translation. Y'all can't buy that Bible at Amazon. That's what I wrote. Okay, all right, so let's jump on to my points because I got 3 points. Brother Thompson already told me 10 minutes ago it was 10 o'clock. Okay, I actually got 4 points. Man, I don't have time to get to these 4 points. Application points. Yes, ma'am. You already talking about my point. I just put points up there, Jenny. You already talking about it?
No.
But go ahead. Go ahead.
I was saying, chapter 4, when I was reading, I want to also put in that Moses didn't want to do it. And that's when the Pharaoh made the circumcision.
Yes, ma'am. And Sister Jen, I hate I ran through that. That's in chapter 4. I hate I ran through that part. But yes, on the way, going back to Egypt, they noticed that Moses had not circumcised one of his sons. So because of that, who circumcised Zipporah, his wife. Okay, all right. Now here's my question I would ask if I had covered that part, Jenny. Okay, there's a lot of speculation about why he didn't do that. Why didn't Moses know to circumcise his son? But of course now, as we said earlier, Moses spent the first 40 years of his life where?
In Egypt.
Right. So the speculation is Moses had been in Egypt for 40 years. He didn't know anything about God's covenant with Abraham about circumcision. But guess who knew about it? Zipporah. Why did she know? Because she kin to Abraham. Well, you heard we were talking about her. She's Midian was Abraham's son by Zipporah, right? So Zipporah probably was familiar with that covenant and knew that he had circumcised his son, right? So she took care of the problem. She took a rock and circumcised the boy, and then threw this foreskin at his feet and said, "You are my bridegroom of blood." Why didn't you do this, Moses? He didn't do it because he spent his life in Egypt. The first 40 years, he didn't know anything about it.
Well, and then also, Brother Mhoon, that the Lord was about to kill you. In the verse before, the Lord sought to kill him, and Zipporah went and circumcised him to save his life.
He was about to kill him, but did he kill him?
No, the Lord didn't kill him because Zipporah circumcised Gershon.
Okay, thank you. I'm glad he didn't kill him. So we can still use him to get the folks out of Egypt.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, what time is it? Okay, we must trust God's timing. Okay, y'all see that? Okay, I've already talked about that. Israel has been in Egypt for 430 years. They've been there 430 years, and then how long is Moses? Moses at this point is 80 years old. 40 years in Egypt, 40 years in Midian. He's 80 years old going to Pharaoh. Okay, so all these years are passing by, and then Israel may have thought, man, God forgot about us. We've been in Egypt 430 years. They were slaves about 300 of those 430 years. God forgot about us. He didn't forget. A lot of years passing by. They may have thought he forgot. Folks that died off and new ones have been raised up in 4 and 30 years. God ain't forgot. He's still working it out. He getting this man Moses ready. He's been through 80 years of training. He ready to get him out. God ain't forgot. So what's my point? I ain't going to make no other points today, probably because that was the first bell. Trust God's timing. Okay? He ain't forgot about us either. Okay? He ain't forgot about you, lost your wife, Orlando, not long ago. He ain't forgot about it. Forgot about y'all have a relative sick, been praying for you, Ashley. Pray for him, Adrian, driving across country. No, he didn't forget. He's still on the throne. Keep crying out to him. I'm going to keep crying out to him. Every time somebody called me and said, Brother Mhoon, I got a problem, I'm going to cry out to God. Because I know I can't fix it. I try to fix the stuff that I can fix, which is not much. Okay? But what I can fix with money and the little wherewithal that I have, I try to fix it. Most of the stuff that needs to be fixed, I can't fix it. God can fix it. Keep crying out to him. Yes, sir, Brother Moore.
Well, you have to trust God's son because, he's the one that does everything. I've been praying. 57 years old, and I'm retired and got married. I've never been married before. She's never been married before. 100 days younger than me. But it was just one of those things, you know. You walk in and go, hey, this is it. Thank you, Lord.
He was just waiting to send you the right one, Brother Moore. That's what it is. That's all he's doing.
57 years old, you know.
Right. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Mama had already passed away, and Dad was still kicking, thank goodness.
Yes, sir. That's good stuff, Brother Moore. That's good stuff. Okay, let me jump to my second point. Probably don't get all these in. We must respond to God's call. God raised Moses up to solve the problem. Fellow that had some flaws. Did Moses have some flaws? He killed a man. It's funny. This past weekend, I had a couple of friends, one friend in town that I met, him and another friend, and we were going back through, these are the guys I used to run with in high school. We were talking about all the crazy stuff we did in high school. I said, man, yeah, there's a lot of crazy stuff. But that was the past. I'm a new person now. I'm trying to live for the Lord. And in fact, Sister Red, they used to tell me they were getting ready to go do some stuff. I said, man, y'all going to do that? I'm long past that. I'm trying to do some other stuff. But just to say, man, God's brought us all a long way ahead. And we got to try to stay on the right path. Because, yeah, as I always said, I got more years behind me than in front. So I got to make these last few count. I know y'all feel the same way. I'm getting away from my point. We got to respond to God's call. This man delivered, here's my last thought and I'm through. He delivered over 1 million people out of slavery, including women and children. How do you do that? With God's help, right? That's the city of Memphis, 1 million people. He delivered the city of Memphis out of Memphis to 200 miles away to the land with milk and honey. Man, that takes God's help. Okay, I guess that's my last thought. Obedience really counts more a lot of times than skill. Moses was obeying. He didn't really necessarily have a whole lot of skills. He was trained in Egypt and Midian, but he was obeying what God told him to do. He can get those Midian folks out of there, right? Didn't have a slave mentality. He did probably a slave mentality. He probably would have got them out of there. They probably been fighting before they got out of good slave mentality. I almost said something. I caught myself. Okay, my time is up. 10:14. Okay, I'm just going to show y'all the last 2 points I had. We must stand against injustice. I wasn't trying to make a political statement. I'm glad Brother Wallace wasn't here. If I showed Brother Wallace here, what you saying, Mhoon? No, I'm not trying to make a political statement. There's a lot of injustice in this section. Pharaoh put the boy babies in the Nile River. That's not right. Tell the midwives, kill the baby when they're born. That's not right. Yeah, something. The shepherds running off Jethro's daughters. That's not right. Moses stood up for all that. Okay, you got to stand up for injustice, whether it's on your job, in your home, in your neighborhood, with your buddies, my old buddies. I can't go do that. Y'all gonna do that. I'm like, I can't do that no more. I'm trying to serve the Lord. I can't do that. And then we must embrace God's presence. You know, Ephesians 3:17. If we walk by faith, God's with us. His Spirit is with us. We gotta trust that. We gotta believe that. We gotta embrace that. If we're doing what God said do, He's with us. We have to embrace that. Just like He was with Moses, He'll be with us. Okay, that's my lesson this morning. Study chapters 5 through 7 for next week, and then you'll be ready for next week's study. Come on, Brother Bobby, give us a closing song, and then Brother Orlando, give us a closing prayer. Let's be standing.
Sing the wondrous